The woman on the porch didn't flinch when his horse stumbled past her, just watched with one good eye and one that caught the light wrong, like broken glass. Cole Brennan pulled the mare to a stop 10 feet from the trough. 3 days without water had turned his mouth to dust and his thoughts to static. The sign above the porch read, Madsen Station in faded paint. Water's 2 cents. Her voice carried no warmth. Fair enough. He led the mare forward. While she drank, he studied the woman without meaning to. The severe pinning of her hair, the blue-gray shawl pulled tight despite the heat, the way her hand rested near her collar like she was guarding something. When their eyes met, she turned her face slightly. Not shame, strategy. That'll do, she said, before the mare had finished. He paid. She took the coins without touching his palm. The wind chimes hanging from the porch beam didn't move. Neither did she. She found him face down in the corral at dawn, one hand still gripping the fence post like it was the only thing between him and hell. Sarah had heard the mare whinny just after sunrise. Too sharp, too distressed. She'd pulled her shawl tight and walked out barefoot, expecting coyotes or a broken fence. Instead, the drifter from yesterday lay crumpled in the dirt, his chest barely moving. She stood there longer than she should have. Watched his fingers twitch against the post. Counted 3 options. Leave him, he'd paid for water, nothing more. Drag him to shade and let nature decide, or bring him inside. The last option made her throat tight. Men didn't come inside, not anymore. But she'd buried one man already, the prospector who'd collapsed 2 summers back. Found him too late, bloated and stiff in the August heat. The smell had lasted weeks. Damn it. She dropped to her knees, grabbed him under the arms. He was heavier than he looked, all bone and leather and sunburn. She pulled. His boots carved twin trails through the dust. The porch steps were hell. His head lolled against her shoulder and she felt the furnace heat of him through her dress. Fever, high. Inside, she dumped him on the floor near the stove. Didn't have the strength to lift him onto the cot. She fetched water, rags, whiskey. Knelt beside him and unbuttoned his shirt with the same efficiency she used for gutting rabbits. His chest was a topography of scars, old ones. Burn marks along his left ribs, puckered and pink even years later. She froze. Her hand hovered over the largest scar. The shape was familiar. Fire damage. Like hers. He moaned. His eyes opened halfway, unfocused. Clara? His voice cracked. That you? No. Sarah pressed the wet rag to his forehead. Cold. Clinical. The baby. Did you get the baby out? Her stomach dropped. She'd heard this kind of delirium before. Grief fever. The kind that burns hotter than any infection. Shh. You're safe. Smoke. He tried to sit up. Failed. Can't breathe. Clara, where? His hand shot out and caught her wrist. Hard. Desperate. Sarah went rigid. She stared at his fingers circling her arm, at the white pressure of his grip. Every instinct screamed to wrench free, to run, to put distance between his need and her skin. But his eyes were somewhere else. Montana, maybe. Wherever this Clara had died. Let go, she said quietly. He didn't hear her. Let go. His grip loosened. His hand fell. She sat back on her heels, breathing hard. Rubbed her wrist where his fingers had been. On the shelf above the stove, the child's wooden horse watched with its painted eye. She'd carved it herself 3 years ago, for the girl she'd almost adopted before the girl's uncle saw the scars and changed his mind. Men leave, she reminded herself. They always leave. She poured whiskey between the drifter's lips anyway, pulled a blanket over him, settled into the chair by the table to watch, just until the fever broke, just to make sure he didn't die on her floor. She woke to darkness and the sound of him breathing. The lamp had burned low. Her neck ached from the angle of the chair. How long had she... His eyes were open, clear, watching her. You stayed, he said. It wasn't a question, more like an accusation. You collapsed in my corral. She sat up straighter, aware suddenly of how close the chair was to where he lay. Couldn't very well leave you to the crows. Could have. No, I couldn't. Something shifted in his expression. Not gratitude. Recognition, maybe. Like he understood the cost of that admission. He looked around the room properly for the first time. Took in the sparse furniture, the clean floor, the wooden horse on the shelf. His gaze lingered there. Yours? No. Then whose? Nobody's now. He didn't push. She was grateful for that. He tried to sit up. Made it halfway before his arms gave out. Easy. She stood, kept her distance. Fever broke an hour ago, but you're weak as a kitten. How long was I out? Day and a half? Christ. He pressed his palm to his forehead. Horse? Still lame. Probably will be for another week. She watched his face as that information landed. Saw him calculate. A week here, with her, in this small station with one room and nowhere to hide. I'll sleep in the barn, he said. Suit yourself. Don't want to be a burden. Little late for that. The corner of his mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. Fair enough. He managed to stand on the third try. Swayed. Caught himself on the table edge. You got a name? She asked. Cole. Cole Brennan. Sarah Matson. Obliged, Miss Matson. It's just Sarah. He nodded. Started toward the door. Stopped halfway. You stay up all night watching me? Her jaw tightened. Someone had to make sure you didn't die. Why? Because. She looked at the wooden horse instead of at him. I don't need another ghost. He studied her for a long moment. She felt his gaze on the side of her face. On the shawl she still wore even in the stifling heat of the closed room. I'll work off the debt, he said finally. Whatever you need done. Corral, well, fences. That's not necessary. It is to me. He walked out into the night. Through the window, she watched him cross to the barn, saw the way he moved, careful, deliberate, like a man carrying something invisible and heavy. The lamp flickered, nearly out. She refilled it herself, lit the wick, set it back on the table where it would burn through till morning, in case he needed light to find his way back. 3 days in, she caught him oiling the hinges on her door, not because she'd asked, but because the squeak had started to sound like a scream. Sarah stood in the doorway with a bucket of well water, watching him work. He didn't acknowledge her, just kept his focus on the hinge, working the oil in with his thumb until the metal moved silent. Didn't ask you to do that. Needed doing. I've managed fine for 2 years with that squeak. He wiped his hands on his pants. Now you'll manage better. She wanted to argue, but couldn't find the angle. He'd already fixed the corral gate yesterday, restacked the wood pile, cleared the drainage ditch that had been clogged since last monsoon season. He worked like a man, trying to erase a debt that couldn't be measured in fence posts and hinges. You hungry? The question came out sharper than she meant. I'm good. That's not what I asked. He finally looked at her. Then yes, ma'am. It's Sarah. Yes, Sarah. She cooked beans and cornbread. He ate at the table, while she stood at the stove, back turned. The silence stretched long enough to hurt. You always eat standing up? He asked. Habit. Bad one. She almost smiled. Almost. You always this forward with women you barely know? Just the ones who saved my life. I didn't save anything. You would have come around eventually. Maybe. He scraped his plate clean. Or maybe the crows would have had me and you'd have another ghost. She flinched. He'd remembered. That word she'd used. Ghost. A rider approached before she could respond. Both of them heard it. The hoofbeats on hard-packed dirt, the jingle of tack. Cole stood automatically, positioned himself between the door and where she stood. She noticed that. Noticed how his hand dropped to his hip even though he wasn't armed. The rider was a drifter. Young, maybe 20. Oh. Cocky smile. He dismounted and walked straight to the trough without asking. Water's 2 cents, Sarah said from the porch. How about 1 cent and a smile? How about 2 cents or you move along? The kid laughed. Come on, lady. You're sitting on a well in the middle of nowhere. 1 cent's fair. Cole stepped off the porch. Didn't say a word, just looked at the kid. The kid's smile died. What? 2 cents. This your woman? This is her water. You want it, you pay her price. And something in Cole's voice, flat, final, made the kid reach for his pocket. He slapped 2 cents on the edge of the trough, watered his horse, rode off without looking back. Sarah descended the steps slowly. Didn't need you to do that. I know. I've been handling drifters for 2 years alone. I know that too. Then why? Because. He met her eyes. I was here. That evening, she found herself setting 2 plates instead of 1. They ate together. Cole talked a little, safe subjects, asked about the town, about water rights, about whether Apache still raided this far south. She answered in short sentences that didn't invite follow-up. He didn't push. After supper, she cleared the plates. He stayed at the table, watching the light fade through the window. Lamp's low, he said. She glanced at the oil lamp on the table. It was maybe half full. Plenty for the night. It's fine. He stood anyway, found the oil can on the shelf, refilled the lamp without asking, his movements careful and methodical. What are you doing? Filling the lamp. I can see that. Why? He struck a match, touched it to the wick. The flame caught, steady and bright. So you don't run out in the night. Cole, it was half full. Now it's full. She stared at him, at the deliberate way he'd done it, like a ritual, like something that mattered beyond the simple mechanics of oil and wick. You're a strange man, Cole Brennan. Been called worse. A beat of silence. Then, unexpected. Did the baby have a name? His whole body went still. I'm sorry, she said quickly. I shouldn't have. Rose. His voice scraped. Her name was Rose, and my wife was Clara. How long ago? 6 years, Montana Territory. And you've been moving ever since? Yes. It wasn't a question. He didn't answer anyway. Just looked at the lamp burning bright between them. That wooden horse on your shelf, he said finally. The child it was for. What happened? Now it was her turn to go silent. Fair's fair, he added quietly. She pulled the shawl tighter. Her name was Eliza, 7 years old. Her mother died of fever, father was already gone, no family except an uncle in Tucson. You were going to take her. I was. Sarah's jaw tightened. Had the papers drawn up. Judge approved it. Then her uncle came to collect her. Saw me. Saw this. She touched her collar. Changed his mind real quick. Said he didn't want his niece raised by someone damaged. Where's the girl now? Orphanage. Tucson. And the horse? I carved it for her before the uncle came. She never saw it. Cole looked at the wooden toy on the shelf, then at Sarah. Something in his expression shifted, softened, and hardened at once. Well, he said, their loss. It was the kindest thing anyone had said to her in 3 years. That night, long after he'd gone to the barn, Sarah sat at the table and watched the lamp burn, full, bright, steady. Outside, the wind chimes moved for the first time, just barely. A whisper of sound in the dark. On the 7th morning, she woke to find every broken fence post replaced and him asleep against the barn door with splinters in his hands. The debt had been paid 3 days ago. His horse was sound enough to travel. Yet Cole Brennan was still here, working through the afternoon heat like a man with nowhere else to be. Sarah stood in the doorway watching him split wood. It was near 105 degrees. Everyone with sense was inside during the dead hours. But there he was, shirt dark with sweat, bringing the axe down with the rhythm of a man who needed the exhaustion more than the firewood. She brought him water. He drank half, poured the rest over his head. Horse is ready, she said. I know. Debt's paid. I know that too. Then why are you still here? He drove the axe into the stump, looked at her directly. You want me gone? The question sat between them like something living. I didn't say that. You didn't say stay either. She pulled the shawl tighter despite the heat. The blue-gray wool was dark with sweat where it touched her neck. He noticed. His eyes lingered on the fabric, on the way she clutched it even as the sun beat down merciless. You ever take that thing off? Her spine went rigid. When I need to. And when's that? Never around people. He nodded slowly, set down the axe, came closer but stopped a respectful distance away. It's 105 degrees, Sarah. I'm aware. You're gonna pass out from heat. I've managed fine for 2 years. That's the second time you've said that to me. His voice was gentle. Maybe managing ain't the same as living? The words hit something deep. She turned away before he could see her face. I should get dinner started. Sarah. Leave it alone, Cole. She went inside, left him standing in the sun. That evening, she found him on the porch. He'd dragged one of the chairs to face the desert, was watching the light bleed out of the sky. She sat in the other chair, didn't speak. He didn't either, for a long while. I ain't running from the law, he said finally. She hadn't asked, but she'd wondered. All right. I'm running from something worse. What's that? Myself. And the simplicity of it, the raw honesty, made her throat tight. That why you keep moving. Seemed easier than staying still. Staying still means thinking. Thinking means remembering. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. 6 years I've been telling myself, it don't matter where I am, long as I ain't where I was. And now? Now I'm starting to think maybe that's just another way of dying. She understood that. Understood it so completely it scared her. How many men left? He asked quietly. After they saw. She'd known this question would come eventually. 4. What did they see that scared them off? Her hand moved to the collar of her dress, fingers hovering, then dropped. Some scars go deeper than skin, she whispered. He turned to look at her fully. Reckon that's true for both of us. The sound of hoofbeats broke the moment. They both stood as a rider approached, not a drifter this time. A man in a dusty vest with a deputy's star catching the last light. Evening, Jack, Sarah said. The deputy, 50s weathered, with kind eyes buried in tired lines, dismounted slow. Evening, Missy. He nodded at Cole. Stranger. Name's Brennan. Jack Moon. Folks call me Mooney. He studied Cole with the practiced eye of a man who'd seen trouble in all its forms. You staying on at the Madsen place? For now. Grissom's been asking about you. Sarah's face went pale. Why? Says a man's been squatting on contested land. Says he's got rights to this station under territorial water development law. Mooney spat in the dirt. Load of horse shit, pardon my language, but that's what he's claiming. This is my land, Sarah said. I've got the deed. I know you do, Missy, but Grissom's got lawyers and territorial pull. He's been buying up stations all along the route. Wants to consolidate water rights for some mining operation. Cole's jaw tightened. He threatening her? Not in so many words, but he's the type who don't need to threaten direct. He'll just make things difficult until you leave on your own. Mooney looked at Sarah with something like pity. I'm sorry, Missy. I'm just here to give you fair warning. Grissom's got men, got the law on his side, least on paper. And what do I got? You got me for what that's worth. And he glanced at Cole. Maybe you got him, if he's fool enough to stick around for what's coming. After Mooney rode off, Sarah stood frozen on the porch. You should go, she said to Cole, before Grissom decides you're part of the problem. Instead of answering, Cole walked inside. She followed, ready to argue. Found him at the table with the lamp. It was barely past sunset. The lamp was 3/4 full, plenty of oil for the whole night. He filled it anyway. Topped it off until it couldn't hold another drop. Lit the wick even though daylight still leaked through the windows. What are you doing? Filling the lamp. Cole, it's still light out. I know. What? Then why? He looked at her, really looked at her. So you know I ain't going nowhere. At the weight of that statement, the lamp burning bright in daylight, the deliberate ritual of filling something that didn't need filling, hit her like a fist to the chest. This wasn't about light. It had never been about light. It was about keeping a promise, about staying when staying was the hardest thing. Why? Her voice broke. You don't owe me anything. The debt's paid. This ain't about debt. Then what's it about? He didn't answer. Just stood there with the lamp burning between them, bright and defiant against the coming dark. Outside, the wind chimes rang sharp and clear. Storm season, pushing closer. Inside, Sarah felt something in her chest crack open for the first time in 3 years. The letter came on a Tuesday, and with it, the name of a woman dead, 6 years, and a child who never drew breath. Thomas Grissom arrived in a hired carriage with 2 men flanking him on horseback. Sarah was at the well when the dust cloud appeared. Cole was reshaping horseshoes at the forge he'd set up behind the barn. They both knew what this was before Grissom's boots hit the ground. Miss Madsen? Grissom removed his hat with exaggerated courtesy. He was tall, well-fed, with the kind of face that smiled without warmth. I trust my deputy conveyed my message regarding your property situation. He did. And then you understand this is simply a legal matter. The territory requires consolidated water access for mining development. You'll be fairly compensated, of course. This land isn't for sale. I'm afraid that's not your decision to make. He produced a document from his jacket. Official seals. Dense paragraphs of legal language. The Territorial Commission has granted me development rights to this section. You have 30 days to vacate. Cole approached from the barn, hammer still in his hand. Grissom's men shifted their weight. Hands drifted toward holstered pistols. Easy, gentlemen. Grissom held up a placating hand. No need for unpleasantness. He turned his attention to Cole with the clinical interest of a man examining livestock. You must be the drifter Moon mentioned. Mr. Brennan, is it? Cole didn't answer. Yes, well, I took the liberty of inquiring about you. Standard procedure when a stranger takes up residence on contested land. He produced another paper, older, creased from travel. You're quite the mystery, Mr. Brennan. No employment history, no fixed address. So I hired an investigator. Colorado, Wyoming, Montana. You've covered considerable ground these past years. Sarah's stomach dropped. She could see it in Cole's face. The thing he'd been running from was about to walk into the light. Montana proved particularly interesting. Grissom read from the page, like a schoolmaster reciting lessons. Silver Bow County, winter of 1879, a cabin fire. 2 fatalities, Clara Brennan, age 26, Rose Brennan, infant, 7 months old. The words landed like stones in still water. The report indicates Mr. Brennan was in town at the time. At a saloon, specifically. Had been there several hours when the fire started. His wife had asked him that morning to repair a faulty chimney flue. He'd promised to do it. Chose whiskey instead. Cole's face had gone gray. He didn't deny it, didn't defend, just stood there taking the words like blows. Now, I share this not to be cruel, Grissom continued with false sympathy, but to illustrate character. This man let his own family burn to death while he drank. You think he'll protect you, Miss Madsen? He'll abandon you the moment things become difficult. That's what he does. Get off my land. Sarah's voice shook. Gladly, but consider what I've said. Grissom replaced his hat. 30 days, Miss Madsen. After that, the territorial marshal will assist with your removal. They rode off in their own dust. Sarah and Cole stood in the yard for a long time after. The silence was worse than the words had been. It's true, then. She didn't look at him, couldn't. You let them die. Yes. Not an excuse. Not an explanation. Just that single, terrible word. You were going to leave. Her voice climbed. Without telling me, without warning me what you were. I wasn't leaving. Liar, she rounded on him. That's what you do, isn't it? You run. You let people burn, and then you run before you have to watch them turn to ash? Sarah, don't. Don't you dare speak my name like... Her hands shook. She pressed them to her face. God, I'm such a fool. I actually thought... She couldn't finish. Couldn't say out loud what she'd started to believe. That maybe this time would be different. That maybe someone would stay. I should have told you, Cole said quietly. Yes, you should have. She looked at him and saw a stranger. Instead, you fixed my fences and filled my lamp and made me think... Her voice broke. Get out. Sarah, please. Get out. He held her gaze for 3 seconds. Then he nodded once and walked toward the barn. That night, Sarah tore the shawl from her shoulders and threw it across the room. It hit the far wall and crumpled to the floor. Just fabric, just wool. Just wool. Nothing magical or protective about it at all. She'd hidden behind it for 3 years, thinking it kept her safe. But safe from what? From people seeing her damage? From admitting she wanted to be seen anyway? She'd been a fool twice over, once for hoping. Twice for trusting that hope with a man who'd already proven what he did when things got hard. You knew, she told the empty room. You knew he'd leave and you let yourself hope anyway. The lamp on the table was still burning, still full from when he'd topped it off that morning. The flame steady and bright and meaningless. She should blow it out, should let the darkness have its way. Instead, she sat at the table and watched it burn. In the barn, Cole was packing his saddlebags when Mooney found him. Where you headed, son? Don't matter. That's a coward's answer. Cole's hands stilled on the leather. Reckon you're right. Mooney sat on an overturned crate, pulled out a flask, took a long drink, offered it to Cole. Cole shook his head. You know what Grissom's doing, Mooney said. He's going to squeeze that girl till she breaks. Legal pressure, social pressure, till she can't take it no more and just leaves on her own. I know. And you're going to let him. Ain't my place to... Horse shit. Mooney's voice hardened. You want to know what your place is? I'll tell you. You're the first man in 3 years who didn't run screaming when he saw what was under that shawl. You looked past it, looked at her, and she started believing maybe she wasn't as broken as everyone told her she was. Cole closed his eyes. Now you're running too, Mooney continued. Only difference is you got a better excuse. Oh, I'm doing it for her own good. She's better off without me. That what you telling yourself? I let my family burn, Jack. I know you did. And you've been punishing yourself 6 years for it. But you want to know what's worse than letting them die? Mooney leaned forward. Letting yourself die with them, walking around dead, but still breathing. That ain't honor, son. That's cowardice. Cole gripped the edge of the stall. His knuckles went white. She's alone out there, Mooney said quietly. Against Grissom and his lawyers and his hired guns. Against a whole town too scared or too callous to stand with her. You leave now, you ain't just running from your past. You're abandoning her to the same kind of darkness that took your wife and baby. Only this time, you're choosing it. She told me to leave. Because you decided for her, just like every other man who saw those scars and ran. You didn't give her a choice. You just proved her worst fear true, that nobody stays. Cole was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was rough. I don't know how to stay. Then learn. Mooney stood with the creak of old joints. But do it fast. Grissom's not going to wait. He left Cole in the dark with his half-packed bags and his ghosts. Outside, thunder rumbled. The first real threat of rain in weeks. Storm season was here. She found the lamp full at dawn, burning in the daylight, his last act before he rode out. Or so she thought until she saw what he'd left beneath it. Sarah had barely slept. Spent the night in the chair, wrapped in a blanket, because the shawl was still on the floor, where she'd thrown it. The lamp had burned all through the darkness, and when pale light crept through the window, it was still going, still full, still bright. He must have filled it one last time before leaving. Some kind of goodbye she didn't want. She approached the table slowly. That's when she saw the paper weighted down by the lamp's base. Brown paper torn from a supply sack, words scratched in pencil with a heavy hand, lamps full. Fence is fixed, wells clean, you won't need me now? The paper shook in her hands. He was gone. Of course he was gone. That's what men did when they saw too much, learned too much, got too close to the damage underneath. Sarah sank into the chair, the one he'd sat in every evening for a week. The wood still held the shape of him, the faint smell of work and leather and wood smoke. She pressed her face to her hands and let herself break. Not loud, not dramatic, just the quiet, terrible unraveling of something she'd been holding together with wire and hope. The 4 men before Cole flickered through her mind like a cruel parade. Their faces, when she'd shown them, The pity, the revulsion, the polite excuses that all meant the same thing. You're too much trouble. Too broken. Not worth the work it would take to love you. She told herself she was fine with it. Had built her life around being alone. But then, Cole Brennan had stumbled into her corral half dead, and something in her had started to wake up. Now she was alone again, and it hurt worse than the fire ever had. I knew you would, she whispered to the empty room. They all do. The wooden horse on the shelf watched with its painted eye. Little Eliza, who'd been taken away because Sarah wasn't good enough to raise her. Clara and Rose, who'd burned because Cole had been drinking instead of keeping his promises. Everyone in this room was a ghost. She should blow out the lamp, let it die, stop pretending light meant anything. But she couldn't make herself reach for it. An hour later, she walked into town. She needed to see Mooney, needed to know if Cole had said anything before he left, where he was headed, whether he'd looked back. Why she needed to know these things she couldn't explain. But the not knowing was worse than the knowing. The town was already awake. Saturday market day, farmers and ranchers bringing goods to trade, church ladies setting up their bake sale tables. The normal machinery of life grinding forward while hers fell apart. People saw her coming, saw the tear tracks she hadn't bothered to hide, the way she clutched her shawl even though the morning was already warm. Saw her walking through town in obvious distress. Mrs. Henderson, the preacher's wife, whispered something to Mrs. Walsh. They both looked away. Tom Grady, who sold feed, met her eyes briefly, then found something fascinating about his boots. Nobody stopped her. Nobody asked if she was all right. They knew. The whole town knew by now that Grissom had exposed Cole Brennan's past. Knew that the drifter who'd been staying at her place was a man who'd let his family burn. Knew that Sarah Madsen, poor scarred Sarah, had been fool enough to trust another man who would leave. The pity was worse than the scars had ever been. She found Mooney in the Broken Spoke Saloon, slumped over a table with an empty bottle. He's gone, she said without preamble. Just like I said he would be. Mooney lifted his head. His eyes were red-rimmed, but not from drink, from crying. This old deputy who'd seen everything and survived it all was crying. That man ain't gone, Missy. Her breath stopped. He's over at Grissom's office right now, Mooney continued, his voice thick, selling his horse to pay your land taxes. The world tilted. What? Grissom's been claiming you're behind on territorial taxes. You ain't. I checked the records myself. But he's got enough pull to make things messy. Drag it through territorial court for months while he keeps pressuring you to leave. Mooney wiped his face. Cole found out this morning, rode straight into town, offered Grissom his horse and every cent he had to cover any supposed debts, and then some. No. The word came out broken. No, he can't. That horse is everything he owns. He knows. Where is he? Grissom's office. But Missy, she was already running, through the market, past the staring faces, past Mrs. Henderson's scandalized gasp at seeing a woman run through town like something wild and desperate. She didn't care about dignity or propriety, or what they thought. Cole hadn't left. He'd sacrificed everything to protect her, and she'd told him to get out. She burst into Grissom's office too late. The transaction was done. Cole stood by the window with his back to her, hatless, his shoulders rigid. On Grissom's desk, transfer papers, receipts, a small stack of coins that looked like every cent a man could scrape together. Mr. Brennan has been very cooperative, Grissom said, his voice oily with satisfaction. His horse will make an excellent addition to my stable. As for your land, Miss Madsen, well, your taxes are paid through the year. You have that much time to reconsider my offer. Where is he going? Sarah's chest heaved. Cole, where? He didn't want to see you, Miss Madsen. Grissom's smile was surgical. Said it would be easier this way. There's a stage leaving for Silver City in an hour. He'll be on it. Cole didn't turn around. No. She moved toward him. Cole, please. Miss Madsen, I must ask you to leave. Grissom stood. This business is concluded. Cole, her voice cracked. Look at me. He did, finally, and his eyes were full of something that looked like goodbye. You paid my taxes. The words tumbled out. You sold everything. Why? You needed the money. I needed you. The truth ripped out of her. I needed you to stay, and you're leaving anyway. Because staying would destroy you. His voice was quiet, certain. Grissom was right. I let my family burn. What makes you think I won't let you burn too? You didn't let me. You paid my taxes with everything you owned, and then I'm getting on that stage. He turned back to the window. You deserve better than a man who shows up too late, who chooses whiskey over keeping his promises. That's not your decision to make. Yes, it is. He faced her again. You want to know why I've been running 6 years? It ain't been to escape what I did. It's been to escape feeling anything ever again, because feeling means losing. and I already lost everything that mattered. So you're losing me too? Her voice broke. You're choosing to lose me? I'm choosing to save you from the man I am. I don't need saving from you. She was crying now, didn't care who saw. Every man who saw these scars. She touched her collar, her neck. Every single one decided I was too broken to love. They decided for me that I wasn't worth staying for. You're doing the exact same thing, just with a nobler reason. That landed? She saw it hit him, saw something crack in his expression. It ain't the same. Yes, it is. She stepped closer. You're deciding I'm too fragile, too damaged, that I can't handle your past or your guilt or your fear. You're treating me like I'm made of glass instead of bone and scar tissue. Oh, Sarah, I stayed up all night watching that lamp burn, she whispered. You filled it knowing I'd see it, knowing I'd understand what it meant. And you know what I realized? He waited. It was never about the light. It was about promises, about showing up, about staying when staying is the hardest thing. She wiped her face with shaking hands. You taught me that, and now you're breaking it. Grissom cleared his throat. Miss Madsen, I really must insist. Shut up. She didn't look away from Cole. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me you don't care. Tell me filling that lamp every night meant nothing. Cole's jaw worked. I can't. Then tell me the truth. The silence stretched. Outside, someone called for the stage. 15 minutes to departure. I ain't been punishing myself for being in town that night, Cole said finally, raw. I've been punishing myself for surviving, for walking away when I could have run in, for choosing to live when they didn't get to. His voice dropped to almost nothing. I've been 6 years running from every person who might make me feel something, because feeling means losing, and I already lost everything. But I stayed here, with you, and that terrifies me more than dying ever did. I know. Sarah's throat was tight. You think I'm not terrified? You think showing you what's under this shawl doesn't scare me more than anything Grissom could do? It ain't the same. Yes, it is. Her voice rose. You're scared of losing someone again. I'm scared nobody will stay after they see. We're both terrified. But at least I was willing to try. At least I was going to show you. Show me what? Everything. Her hands moved to the top button of her dress, trembling. The scars, the real ones. Not just the edge you glimpsed. All of it. Sarah, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Her fingers fumbled with the second button. Because you need to see that I'm not fragile. That I survived a fire too. That we match. She got the third button open before he crossed the distance between them. His hand covered hers, gentle, stopping her. Not here, he said quietly. Not for him. He meant Grissom, who'd been watching this entire exchange like it was theater. Then where? She whispered. You're getting on that stage. Cole looked at her for a long moment. Then he turned to Grissom. I want my horse back. I'm afraid that's not possible. The sale is, I want my horse back. Each word had weight, threat. You can keep the money for the taxes. But the horse is mine. Something in his tone made Grissom reconsider whatever refusal he'd been planning. Very well, but the taxes stay paid, and Miss Madsen's 30 days remain in effect. Fine. Cole took Sarah's elbow, carefully, asking permission with the gesture, and guided her out of the office. The stage driver called final boarding as they passed. Cole didn't look at it. They walked through town together, past the staring faces and the whispers, past the church ladies and the men who'd never once stood up for Sarah in 3 years. Let them stare. Let them talk. For the first time in her life, Sarah didn't pull her shawl tighter, didn't hide. She walked beside Cole Brennan with her head up, and she didn't care who saw. The storm came the way guilt does, slow at first, then all at once, turning the sky the color of old bruises. Cole rode to the Mesa Overlook alone, highest point for 20 miles. Behind him, the town, Sarah's station, the barn where he'd spent a week pretending he could stay. Ahead, nothing but desert and the promise of rain that might wash everything clean or drown it entirely. His horse shifted beneath him, nervous. Animals knew when the world was about to change. He should keep riding. Mesa was the perfect vantage to plan an exit route. Head east toward Silver City, north to Colorado, didn't matter where, long as it was somewhere else. Instead, he dismounted, let the horse graze on the sparse grass, sat on a rock that had probably been there since God was learning how to make weather. Below, Sarah's station looked small, fragile, a single lamp of civilization in all that emptiness. From this distance, he couldn't see her, couldn't see if she was standing on the porch waiting, or if she'd already accepted that men like him didn't stay. The wind picked up, smelled like copper and ozone, storm building fast. Cole pulled his saddlebag off the horse, opened it. His entire life fit in leather and canvas. 3 shirts, spare pants, a razor, ammunition for a gun he'd sold 2 years back, and a daguerreotype wrapped in oilcloth. He unwrapped it carefully. Clara and Rose. Taken 3 months before the fire. Clara was smiling, holding the baby who was just starting to focus her eyes on the world. "Been carrying you 6 years," he said to the image, to the ghosts. "Figured if I kept moving, I'd eventually outrun what happened." "But you don't get lighter with distance, do you?" The photograph didn't answer. It never did. He repacked the bag, then unpacked it, then packed it again. Ritual of indecision. Evidence of a man who'd forgotten how to choose anything except departure. Thunder rolled across the valley, still distant but closing. "I let you burn," he said out loud. Needed to hear it in his own voice. "Been telling myself it was because I was drinking, because I was weak, because I chose whiskey over fixing that goddamn chimney." The desert absorbed the words without judgment. "But that ain't the real sin, is it?" His voice cracked. "The real sin is, I survived. I walked away from that cabin still breathing while you turned to ash. And I've been punishing myself by refusing to live. By moving through the world like a ghost pretending to be a man. 6 years of running. 6 years of refusing to feel anything that might lead to attachment. To loss. To the terrible risk of caring about someone enough that losing them would break you all over again." Sarah's face surfaced in his mind. The way she'd looked at him in Grissom's office. "I needed you." 3 words that weighed more than 6 years of grief. "She's alive," he whispered. "Right now. Right down there. And I'm doing the same thing to her that everyone else did. Deciding she ain't worth the risk. Deciding she's too broken, or I'm too broken, or we're both too goddamn broken to try." Movement below caught his eye. Dust cloud on the road to town. 3 riders. Too fast for casual travel. Grissom's men, probably. Coming to apply more pressure, more threats. And Sarah was alone. Cole stood. The wind hit him full force now, carrying the first fat drops of rain. Cold, clean. The kind of rain that announced the monsoon season with authority. He could ride east, be gone before the storm hit in full. Let Sarah handle Grissom on her own because she'd been handling things on her own for 3 years and she'd probably be fine. Probably. Or he could ride back down. Stand between her and whatever was coming. Risk caring again. Risk losing again. Risk all the terrible possibilities that came with staying in one place long enough for it to matter. 6 years, he said to Clara's memory, to Rose's ghost, to the wind and the coming storm. 6 years I've been dead but breathing. That ain't what you would have wanted. Either of you. He closed his eyes. Let the rain hit his face. And there, whether real or imagined, he'd never know, he heard Clara's voice. Not from the past. From somewhere deeper. "You couldn't save us. But you can save her, and maybe that's how you save yourself." His eyes opened. Below, he could see smoke now. Not from Sarah's station. From the direction of town. Something was burning. Or someone was sending a message. He had maybe 20 minutes before the wash flooded. Before the storm made the trail impassable. Before whatever was happening down there resolved itself one way or another. 20 minutes to choose between the man he'd been and the man he could become. Cole swung back into the saddle. The horse danced, eager to move, to escape the storm. "Ain't running no more," he told the animal, told himself, told the ghosts he'd been carrying. He turned the horse toward the valley, toward Sarah, toward whatever came next. The storm broke open above him, rain like nails, lightning splitting the sky, the kind of weather that turned the desert into something violent and beautiful and alive. Cole rode into it, not away from his past. Not towards some imaginary redemption. Just toward the one person in 6 years who'd looked at his scars and recognized them. Because she carried her own. The mesa disappeared behind him in the rain. Ahead, the station, the smoke. The choice to matter or to vanish. He chose to matter. The desert could keep his ghosts. He was going home. Even if home was just a woman on a porch and a lamp that stayed lit through the dark. Even if staying meant the risk of losing again. Especially because of that. Thunder swallowed his path. The storm swallowed the world. And Cole Brennan rode straight into the heart of both. Grissom's men arrived with the storm, 3 riders and a writ of eviction, thinking the flood would wash away any witnesses. Cole saw them from half a mile out. He pushed his horse harder through the rain, mud sucking at hooves, lightning, turning the world, white, then black. The wash was already rising. Another hour and it'd be a river. He reached the station as they were dragging Sarah off her porch. She fought, clawed at the man's arm, kicked at his shins. Her shawl was gone, torn away in the struggle. Rain plastered her hair to her skull, and for the first time Cole saw the full extent of the scars on her neck and shoulder. Brutal, beautiful, proof she'd survived something that should have killed her. "Let her go," his voice cut through the storm. The 3 men turned. One held Sarah's arm. The other 2 flanked him like dogs waiting for a command. Professional muscle. The kind that got paid to make problems disappear. This ain't your concern, Drifter. The leader was thick-necked, with a face that had been broken and healed wrong. Ladies being evicted, legal and proper. In the middle of a storm? Cole dismounted slow, kept his hands visible. That legal too? Grissom wants her off the land by sundown. Storm or no storm. Sundown's 3 hours away. This looks like you're just trying to scare her. The man smiled without warmth. Maybe. Or maybe we're just following orders. Sarah wrenched her arm free, stumbled toward Cole. Don't. There's 3 of them, and you're not even armed. She was right. He'd sold his gun 2 years back, had nothing but his fists and the kind of anger that had been building for 6 years. But he'd learned something on that mesa, learned it from Clara's voice, or his own conscience, or maybe just from the simple fact of choosing to come back. Violence wasn't the answer. It never had been. You want her land, Cole said, positioning himself in front of Sarah. You go through me first. The men laughed. Actually laughed. Boy, you got more balls than brains. Maybe. Cole's voice stayed level. But here's what you're going to do. You're going to ride back to Grissom and tell him 3 armed men threatened a woman alone in a storm. You're going to tell him there were witnesses. What witnesses? Ain't nobody out here, but a shot cracked the air. Everyone froze. Mooney stood at the property line, rifle pointed at the sky. Rain streamed off his hat. He looked sober for the first time in days. Looked like the lawman he'd been before grief and whiskey had worn him down. That'd be me, Mooney called. Deputy Jack Moon. And I just witnessed 3 men assaulting a woman on her own property. This is territorial business. This is assault. I don't care whose payroll you're on. Mooney lowered the rifle, not aiming at them, just present. Now you can ride back to town and explain to Grissom why you failed. Or you can try something stupid, and I write a report that gets sent to the territorial marshal about how Grissom's hiring thugs to terrorize citizens. The thick-necked man's jaw worked, calculating. 3 of them, 2 men and a drunk deputy. But witnesses changed things. Witnesses meant paperwork, investigations, things Grissom wouldn't want. Fine. He spat in the mud. But the eviction stands. 30 days, lady. Then we come back with the marshal. And it won't matter who's watching. They mounted up. Rode off into the storm. Sarah collapsed against Cole's chest. He caught her, held her upright. Her whole body shook. Cold, fear, adrenaline. You came back, she whispered. I did. Why? Tell you later. Mooney approached, rifle slung over his shoulder. His smile was tired but genuine. Hell of a time to grow a spine, son. Learn from the best. Horse shit. You learned from a drunk. But Mooney's eyes were warm, proud even. Thunder cracked directly overhead, the kind that made your bones vibrate. We should get inside, Sarah said. Storm's gonna get worse before... The gunshot came from the direction of the wash. One of Grissom's men was back, the youngest one. He'd circled around through the wash, come up behind them. His pistol was drawn, aimed at Cole's back. Nobody moves, the kid said, voice shaking. Grissom said make sure she leaves, said do whatever it takes. Son. Mooney's hand drifted toward his rifle. Don't! The kid's gun swung toward Mooney. I'll shoot. I swear I'll... No, you won't. Mooney's voice gentled. Became the voice of a man who'd talked down scared boys before. Because you're not a killer. I can see it. You're just trying to earn a paycheck. I got orders. Orders ain't worth dying for. And that's what'll happen if you pull that trigger. Law will hunt you. Your conscience will haunt you. Trust me, son. I know what it's like to carry ghosts. The kid hesitated, gun wavering. In that split second, everything happened at once. The kid's finger twitched, the gun roared, and Mooney threw himself forward, not toward the kid, but in front of Cole and Sarah. The bullet took him in the chest. He went down hard. The kid's face went white with horror. He dropped the gun like it had burned him and ran, splashing through the mud toward his horse and gone into the storm. Cole and Sarah dropped to their knees beside Mooney. Blood spread across his shirt, mixing with rainwater, turning the ground beneath him dark. Mooney! Sarah's hands pressed against the wound. No. It's all right, Missy. His voice was already fading. Been a long time since I did something worth doing. You're not dying. Cole, help me get him inside. But Mooney's hand caught Cole's wrist. Weak, urgent. Listen, Mooney whispered. Tell her. He coughed, red on his lips. Tell her I kept my word. That somebody did. Jack, don't. 30 years I've been wearing this star. Most days I wore it drunk. But today... His eyes found Sarah's. Today, I did my job. Protected someone who needed it. Please, Sarah sobbed. Please, don't leave. Not leaving, Missy. Just going where my boy's been waiting. Mooney's breathing rattled. You take care of her, Brennan. You hear me? You don't run. You stay. You keep that lamp full. I will. Promise me. I promise. Mooney smiled, closed his eyes. The rain washed his face clean, and Jack Mooney Moon died doing what he'd always claimed he couldn't do anymore, being the kind of man who stood up when it mattered. The storm peaked. Wind tore the chimes from the porch, sent them clattering into the mud. The wash became a river. Lightning turned the world into a strobe of violence and grief. Cole carried Mooney inside, laid him on Sarah's table, crossed his hands over his chest, found a blanket to cover him. Sarah stood in the corner shaking, not from cold, from everything. "He died for us," she whispered. "He died keeping his word." Cole looked at the old deputy's face. Peaceful now. "Reckon that's all any man can hope for." Outside, the storm screamed. Inside, silence settled like ash. Cole walked to where Sarah stood, didn't touch her, just stood close enough that she could feel him there. "I came back," he said quietly. "I know. I'm not leaving again. Even though it's dangerous? Even though Grissom will come back? Especially because of that." He finally looked at her. "I spent 6 years running from ghosts, from feeling anything, from the risk of losing someone again. But Mooney was right. That ain't living. That's just dying slow." Thunder rolled, softer now, the storm passing over. "I don't know how to stay," Cole admitted. "Don't know how to be the man you need, but I'm willing to learn, if you'll let me." Sarah's hand found his in the dark, held on, like he was the only solid thing in a world gone to water and wind. "The lamp's full," she whispered. "It is. Are you going to keep filling it? Every night, long as you'll let me. Even when it's hard?" "Especially then." She leaned against him. Let him hold her weight. Let herself be held without armor or apology. Outside, the storm began to gentle. The worst had passed. Inside, 2 people stood in the dark with a dead man on the table and a lamp burning bright. And, for the first time in 6 years, Cole Brennan felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. The dawn came clean, the way forgiveness does, washing the blood and the dust and the years of running, leaving only what was real. 3 days after the storm. 3 days since Mooney's burial on the hill behind the church, where Sarah had carved his name into wood, and Cole had stood with his hat over his heart, learning what it meant to witness grace. They'd worked in near silence since, clearing mud, repairing fence, avoiding the conversation that hung between them like something that would either heal or break. At sunrise on the 4th day, Sarah found Cole on the mesa, the same spot where he'd almost chosen leaving. Now he stood watching the valley wake up, his horse grazing nearby, her blue-gray shawl folded over his arm. She climbed the path slowly. He heard her coming, didn't turn. "Thought you might want this back," he said, offering the shawl. "Found it in the mud after the storm. Cleaned it best I could." She took it, held the familiar weight, then set it on the rock beside them. "I want to show you something first." His eyes found hers, questioning. "What you tried to see in Grissom's office. What I've been hiding for 3 years." Her hands moved to her collar. "Steady this time." "Sure. Not because I have to, because I want you to see." Sarah, please." So he waited. Stood there, in the clean morning light, while she unbuttoned her dress to the waist, unwrapped the bandages she wore beneath, revealed the full map of fire damage, neck, shoulder, collarbone, half her back, skin puckered and shining where it had melted and healed wrong. Beautiful in the way survival is beautiful. Proof she'd crawled through hell and come out breathing. Cole looked, really looked, not with pity or horror, with recognition. He unbuttoned his own shirt, showed her the burns along his ribs she'd glimpsed that first night. His own map of the night. He'd tried to run into a burning cabin and been held back by neighbors who said it was too late. "We match," he said quietly. She almost laughed, almost cried, did both. He stepped closer. His fingers traced the edge of her largest scar, gentle, reverent, then dropped away. "Ain't nothing beneath that cloth I can't carry." His voice was rough. True. Already been carrying worse my whole life. She did cry then, not from pain, from being seen and chosen anyway. From the weight of it, this man who'd lost everything, choosing to risk everything again. "You think that scar is what I see?" He cupped her face with both hands. "I see the woman who didn't let it kill her. I see someone strong enough to survive alone and brave enough to let someone stay." "I'm still scared," she whispered. "Me too." "What if you leave? What if I don't?" She didn't have an answer for that, for the possibility that someone might actually keep their word. Cole reached for the shawl, draped it back over her shoulders, not to hide her, but to warm her. The distinction mattered. "No winter," he said. "What?" He gestured toward the valley, toward her station. "That's what I'm calling it. Our place, no winter, means you don't gotta freeze no more, not while I'm here." Below them, the station looked different in the morning light. Fresh lumber on the corral, new wind chimes hanging from the porch, just 3 bells, but they sang clear. And if you looked close, You could see someone had painted new words above the door. No winter. Brennan Station. Sarah leaned against his shoulder. He wrapped his arm around her, shawl and all. They stood that way while the sun climbed. Two people who'd survived fire learning how to survive peace. The chimes rang once, soft, true. You really gonna stay? She asked. Already told you, lamp's full. And if it runs out? Then I'll fill it again. He pulled her closer. Every night, long as you let me. And she believed him, not because he'd promised, because he'd already chosen her when leaving would have been easier. The desert stretched out below them, still harsh, still unforgiving, but somehow less empty than before. Sarah closed her eyes, felt the sun on her scars, felt Cole's warmth beside her, and for the first time since the fire, she didn't feel cold.